Okay, go.
Net neutrality is defined by Google as, quote, the principle that internet service providers should enable access to all content and applications regardless of the source and without favoring or blocking particular products or websites. This most certainly is how things are on the internet today, and many would have it stay that way forever. Now, there are two conflicting sides to this issue, however. On one hand, those who support net neutrality say the internet was designed to be open and free. And on the other hand, you have the service providers saying, wait a minute, we own these networks that you're using, and we should have some say in how much or how little you can use. Those in favor of net neutrality say we should not restrict the flow of information on the internet. But equally important, though, in a free market society, we should not tell someone or a company what they can do with their equipment. If internet service providers don't find value in updating and growing their networks, we could see a massive slowdown or standstill on the internet as things continue to grow and take up more and more bandwidth on an unmaintained and aging network infrastructure. You can definitely say goodbye to the possibility of 5G or 6G speeds on your mobile device. Now, to support net neutrality, I would be scoffing at over 200 years of U.S. constitutional law that have put this nation where it is today. Like it said in Raymond Niles' article, Net Neutrality Towards a Stupid Internet, but these physical means are not free. The specialized computers, servers that a web content provider such as Google uses to make its content available on the web must be purchased and maintained by that content provider and are therefore its rightful property. Inherently, these companies have a right to earn from their investment and use their property the way they see fit.
But as a counter-argument, don't they earn money from the advertising? Most ISPs don't only provide internet service. For example, AT&T can be an ISP as well as a cell phone carrier, and they also, I'm pretty sure, provide cable. And so they do a lot more than just that one thing. So they can make most of their money from phone sales and contracts. Why should they be making more money by charging for who can broadcast on their network? Comcast also does both cable, internet, and phone. They make use of their money in other areas while still being able to provide content that the users want. At the same time, this could also damage the ISPs. Smaller ones that don't make as much money aren't going to be able to hold their own with the bigger companies and will end up getting shut down, thus creating less competition and bringing everything closer to a monopoly.
Well, Elizabeth, I tend to see life in a bigger picture, and I do see your point. However, things are not always black and white. You know, in our society, our local, state, federal governments, sometimes they throw around this well-known concept of eminent domain. Is that what you and the supporters of net neutrality are trying to do? You know, the ideal is defined by Cornell University Law School as the power of the government to take private property and convert it into public use. Do these networks that the internet run off of, do they fall into this category? You know, without the free flow of the internet, you say we risk losing the open sharing of information. Millions of jobs could be affected, and the world as we know it could become much more controlled and selective. But should these internet service providers be forced to continue growing and maintaining their equipment without getting anything in return? Quite simply, the answer is no. The Fifth Amendment provides that the government may only exercise this power if they provide just compensation to the property owners.
There's also a lot of discrimination that goes into eliminating net neutrality, though. A company like YouTube or Netflix is not going to have any problem paying fees associated with getting their content on the net. But what about startups or companies that are struggling? Even nonprofits can get thrown into this category. They may not have the budget necessary to pay any extra ISP fees, and these laws really limit that. Getting rid of net neutrality is also not fair to users who have to pay more for every individual thing. Everyone should have fair access to information provided on the internet. So why should I have to pay individually to be able to Skype with my family, but then have to pay extra to send an email or do classwork? I feel like some of the biggest people hit would be college students. If colleges have to pay more to provide the email for students and other research tools, it's going to drive the tuition up even more than it already is. And for students living off campus, such as me, this can be a major hindrance. Most college students don't have a lot of extra money, and so they would have to really think about what they can afford in terms of paying any extra ISP fees, in terms of what they would ask in order to have the tools necessary, even just to do classwork. And my very last point is that freedom of speech is also in jeopardy here. By having ISPs limit who can have data sent, they're limiting what voices can be heard. And that would be similar to someone trying to protest and having the building that they're protesting in front of say, hey, wait, you need to pay us money to protest here. That's just not right. Limiting what information can be shared over an ISP is an extreme invasion of free speech.
Well, I do see your points. And I guess with all this back and forth, it is hard to make a clear-cut decision. But in my opinion, I think if we're going to take control of the internet and ensure its net neutrality, then I also think that someone, somehow, maybe the government, need to make sure the internet service providers are compensated fairly so they can continue to grow our bandwidth and our capabilities into the future.
I suppose I could accept that compromise. It really is there. I do see your points as well. There's a lot of different ways you can go thinking about it, and so it's definitely best to come to a compromise, and I do feel that your way is a very good compromise between compensating the ISPs for what they're providing, but as well as not limiting what data is shared.
I agree.